is just wildly inappropriate. And yet, I'm really glad you're here.
Your actions were totally inappropriate.
For some reason, he felt that it was inappropriate.
Look into the camera and say something inappropriate.
You don't get personal. That is totally inappropriate behavior.
How inappropriate!
What exactly about my methods are inappropriate?
He tweeted some inappropriate things.
That's a little inappropriate, don't you think?
At what point is it inappropriate?
No, inappropriate. Inappropriate. Stop it right now.
Oh, that is unbelievably inappropriate.
You're vulgar. You're inappropriate.
That's just grossly inappropriate.
Wow, you are so inappropriate.
It's such an inappropriate description.
Inappropriate, but precise.
You know what's inappropriate?
It's completely inappropriate! Why?
That's inappropriate! That's inexcusable!
Inappropriate things.
Be totally inappropriate.
Inappropriately so.
How very inappropriate, thank you.
Inappropriate.
It's wildly inappropriate. This is incredibly inappropriate.
This is highly inappropriate.
Okay, this is inappropriate. Grossly inappropriate.
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 Inappropriate!
Inappropriate.
Hello, can everybody hear me? I always still want to check on this. All right, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss at Internet Shitlords. I hope you guys can hear me. And I'm joined tonight, as usual, by Venger Satanis and by Ryan David. And tonight we also have another very special guest star. And let me preface by saying that, you know, if for a moment we make an analogy that I'm kind of like the Jordan Peterson of the RPG hobby, and pipe-smoking Jordan Peterson, and then Venger is like a bald Matt Walsh of the RPG hobby, and Ryan David is like a chubby Ben Shapiro of the RPG hobby. You can kind of understand why certain people on the woke side of things would hate us, because we're kind of forward-facing assholes, you know. But our guest, I was trying to think of what he's like, and I guess maybe the closest I could say is that he's sort of like a Steve Bannon of the RPG hobby. That he's never a guy that's been up front. He doesn't go around like showboating, you know. He doesn't do the Matt Walsh thing or the Alex Jones things or things like that, right? But for some reason, the left absolutely loses their minds over him, right? Because I think they think of him as some kind of a mastermind that is behind the scenes directing, I don't know, directing the OSR to refuse to accept the bullshit of the woke or something like that, you know? So this is our guest tonight, Alexander Macris of Adventurer, Conqueror, King, and Ascendant. And welcome to the show, Alex.
Hello. I'm dialing in from my supervillain lair here.
Yeah, the brick wall and everything.
Yeah, just spent the day giving reactionary directives to my evil minions. It's been good. All
right. Well, so like, what do you think of that? Because I mean, one of the things we wanted to have you here last time when you were still in the middle of your Kickstarter, though it was already, you know, I guess it was in this last few days when we did our previous episode, but we couldn't because of you had a conflict of scheduling.
I did. Yeah, I went to a concert with my wife. Yeah, she had bought tickets for us. So,
well, in that that episode, we talked about how there, you know, we were generally talking about kind of censorship on internet part of the gaming hobby. And one of the reasons we had originally asked you to be the guy to come over was because you, in a lot of places, including quite a few of the Reddit areas and Facebook groups and in RPGNet, and most of these kind of places where you have administrators that are woke, they might hate me, or they might hate Benjer, or they might hate some other people. But in your case, people aren't even allowed to post your name, right? We had Griffith Morgan on the show, and he's just mentioning you got him like a warning, I don't even know if he knows you, right? Like not really, but it was crazy.
Yeah, my name is a killing word, right?
It's like the hobby, like that you must not be named.
I think the reason for the hatred is maybe because I'm like the equivalent of a class traitor, right? For many years I ran The Escapist, and The Escapist was widely perceived as being, quote unquote progressive, and it was never intended to be progressive. It was actually, I founded it with very much a love for gamer culture and kind of a libertarian live and let live vibe. But at the time that we started it, you had that fellow in California that was trying to regulate video games, Jack Thompson, coming from the right, really pushing for censorship. And so we were opposed to that. And so, of course, we found our fans within those who felt the same. And then, when Gamergate happened and it became an issue of gamers versus game journalists, I chose to side with the gamers. And, that's why there's a lot of folks that hated me since then. And then after that, obviously some folks hate me because I worked with Milo Yiannopoulos, who's not a popular person on the left, let's say.
Well, you worked with a lot of people, though, right? Like you worked also with like Brandon Morse, and before Milo, before you even knew Milo Yiannopoulos, there were people that were hating on you because you hired Brandon Morse to one of the associated websites to The Escapist. You hired me to one of the associated. But what these people don't,
what these people have never understood, or they don't care, or they're ignorant. I'm not sure, but I've associated with hundreds of people. The vast majority of them have been left-wing. I mean, I worked in Defy Media for a Los Angeles company. 90% of my colleagues were left-wing. 90% of my employees were left-wing. 90% of my talent was left-wing. I had no problem working with any of them. I promoted them. There are many folks out there whose careers I started for them. Some of them are very, very left. There's this like strange mental illness where people think, if you work with any right winger, it means you automatically advocate for everything that they've ever believed and said. Whereas if you work with a left winger, that's just doing your job. And it's like, I'm just doing my job. And sometimes my job involved working with left wing people. Sometimes my job involved working with right wing people. As it happened, I had a website I was running called Every Joe that was aimed at like the Heartland male who votes Republican. So we had a lot of right wing content. I was also running The Gloss and Girl.com and Crushable, which were all feminist and women's websites, and they were all left-wing. But somehow people can't be bothered to do their homework and even look into that. It's ridiculous. Well,
this is a culture change, right? Because it used to be, like, for example, the New York Times was always kind of a left-leaning paper, right? But it also all the time used to have articles, columns that were written by people from a right-wing perspective, right? And that was seen as part of the objectivity of the Fourth Estate, and now it seems to me like that the progressive invasion into our society, even before taking over the schools, the number one thing they went after was the press, media, and publishing, because it's the equivalent of, this is like, in the 60s, Che Guevara and his revolutionaries would have come in, and the first thing they'd have done is capture the radio stations, And so the danger that you represented is that you were not yourself a vocal advocate, but you provided a platform that was, it's sort of like what's going on with Elon Musk now, right? See, again, he's a kind of risky figure in the smaller scale context of the hobby, at least, because he's a guy that is not in any way especially offensive, but they hate him just because he destroys their monopoly over information. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. And that all traces back to the strategies laid out by the New Left, Herbert Marcuse, and that whole gang. And I mean, they wrote essays about it, right? Repressive tolerance. We have to make sure that we repress all speech that's coming from the right. We only permit speech from the left. And they literally said, we're going to do a long march through the institutions, and we're going to do this. And then they did it. And, we have no one to blame for that but ourselves, because we let them do it.
Isn't that the most curious thing, when they tell their game plan and sometimes years or decades in advance, and we all act like shocked that it happened.
Right. And if you try and tell people about the game plan, they're like, why are you such a conspiracy theorist? I'm like, bro, maybe you haven't been keeping up with current events, but we're getting our asses kicked, pal. It's not a conspiracy. Like,
oh,
yeah.
Yep.
Now, of course, there are conspiracy theories that end up getting in the way of those truths. But they're like, this is one of the things that bugs me, because there's some people say, well, no, that okay, like this thing that happened, and we're going totally off topic here now, right? But this thing that happened in Iowa, that this group called the Church of Satan, the Satanic Temple, they went and put up this satanic statue in the Iowa courthouse, the Iowa Legislative House, right next to the manger scene, right? And some guy came and knocked it down and stuff, and there's that debate, right? But the thing that bugged me was that I was trying to point out, because having been a researcher of weird sex and religious movements and all that sort of thing, I was already aware of these people, right? And I was trying to point out that these guys are not actually Satanists, that what they are is an atheist secular advocacy group that have gotten somehow the tax exempt religious status from the government, and are using this in a false way, because they say themselves, it's on their website, right? We don't believe in anything. We don't believe in God. We don't believe in Satan. We're defending the fact that the state should not have any official religion. And I still get people that are saying, no, but you know what? They're secret Satanists, They're saying that, but it's a deception, just like people, like people in Hollywood will tell you they're not Satanists, but secretly they're sacrificing babies. I'm like, look, even if that was right, what the fuck is the point of talking about that? Because the thing that matters is, how do you stop them? And the way you stop them is that they're actually committing a fraud, right? They have falsely identified themselves as a religion. They're performing a con job on the government, and they should be sued for that. They should be taken out of legal form so they can stop doing this shit. But there's other people that are so obsessed with the, whatever QAnon told them, that gets in the way of dealing with the actual immediate problem that these guys have admitted about, so deal with that first. Yeah.
Oh,
they got that.
I have a story on this. I want Venger's
opinion.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
Yeah,
so
let's
when I worked at Milo Inc., I actually had a recruiter come to get me to join the Satanic Church. But it was not the one that is allied with the left. And in fact, he was a right-winger, and he was
the Church of Satan.
He was outraged at their theft of the true religion of Satanism. And
the Church of Satan and the Temple of Set have both they both despise the Satanic Temple, because those two groups are actual Satanists, right? They think
so he was the actual Church of Satan. And I was like, oh, do you guys actually do all the black magic? And he was like, absolutely, it's very powerful. And then he took me out to a 5-star dinner, and we drove around in his Ferrari. And I was like, okay, I guess you have powers. This is interesting. So Venger Satanist, tell me the story, man. How do I get a Ferrari?
You are well on your way, Hoss. If anything, I should be coming for advice to you. But yeah, I mean, I would agree that I heard that too as kind of a legal opinion on knocking down that statue. Is that, I mean, technically, if you're the type of fake Satanist that doesn't believe in any supernatural or divine or infernal entity or even force, you don't believe in any kind of religious thing at all, then basically all he did was knock down a statue, which, according to the left, is social progress and is good for society, and that's what we should be doing. So
he should have super glued himself to the statue and thrown some Campbell's soup on it, right? I mean,
right.
That's what they do, and it's just, it's, I don't know. Hopefully, I mean, obviously they got that group, that Temple of Satan and whatever, got their tax exempt status because they're outspoken leftists, and a lot of the government agencies like the IRS are progressive agencies.
Well, they took a page right out of Scientology, Venger, right? LRH had the model. It took Miscavige to actually get the job done, and now that door's been broken open, what's to stop? I mean, we should have the Church of Inappropriate Characters. Hey, we're tax-free.
But the Scientologists actually have beliefs. They're insane beliefs, but they have to, right? The point is, to be a tax-exempt religious organization in the United States, there should be there in fact is a requirement that you need to believe in the thing you claim that you are worshiping, right? Or whatever it is, however the mode of spirituality is, it has to actually
you should believe in something.
Well, aren't they worshiping
it's technically not a religion.
Isn't that what the gimmick is with this group of Satanists? Isn't it all about narcissism and self-worth?
It is. Yeah, the self and the ego, and somehow they're making just being like a self-serving asshole up to the height of religiosity.
They have no religious ritual. They have no religious practices. They have no religious demonstration apart from using it to troll Christians, right? Anyways, before we go too far from here, I think we should get on with the actual show and our guests. So DMC Draws said on the live chat, I haven't yet bought into Adventure Conqueror King, but I did recently buy Alex's book, Arbiter of Worlds, on Amazon, which I look forward to reading. So in case anybody isn't familiar with our guest, so in terms of gaming, because we now know, as you know, he worked on The Escapist and a lot of other things at Defy Media. He worked with Milo Yiannopoulos. But in the gaming world, he produced probably your most famous work, Alex, would be Adventure Conquer King System, which is one of the second wave OSR products. It's an OSR game that is not an exact copy of any of the original edition D&D versions. It has its own innovations, but it's obviously meant to be a change of the system of design to accomplish certain things. And I think most specifically to accomplish the elements of things like domain level play, which is the really strong suit that causes a lot of people to like ACKS. And then besides that, you've done Ascendant, which is a superhero RPG, and we might talk a bit more about that too. And then this Arbiter of Worlds is, I believe, your kind of guide to DMing. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else that we're missing on this list?
I did. I did a modern military micro armor war game called Modern Spearhead for 6mm and 15mm micro armor combat, and I did a campaign setting for World War II Spearhead for North African campaigns called Blaze Across the Sand. But most people don't play modern micro armor anymore, so that's a niche of a niche at this point. But that was actually my first game design was in the modern micro armor space.
And now
you guys in chat probably just got a boner, but yeah, for everybody else, they're like, whatever.
They're like, what's micro armor? It's like Microsoft. It's basically the same thing.
I believe that one of your most current project is that you're working on the second edition of ACKS, or I don't know if you're calling it the second edition, the revised edition, or what have you. But you've just done a Kickstarter. It did like $330,000. Is that right? And,
it was so no joke. It was 666% funded. I was like, way to help my reputation for being evil there, Kickstarter. And at the moment when it funded, I was with my wife's family, and they're Pentecostal Christians. And so they're like, how's your Kickstarter doing? How did it finally close out? I'm like, 600. It did really good.
665.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an awkward moment. But But yeah, so ACKS II is 98% done. I'm just fixing some math errors in the monster manual right now, but like I've already dropped the entire player's handbook, that is the revised rulebook, and the judge's journal out to the people to start playing. So.
And what are the major differences between the previous edition and this one? Where is it an expanded edition, or have you fundamentally changed some of the rules? Let's start with that.
Both. There's been a ton of changes. So some of the changes were motivated by my desire to get off of the open game license, right? Because I didn't want to be tied to Wizards of the Coast anymore. I divorced them. So I had to change a bunch of spells and change a bunch of D&D-isms, change some of the attribute names, change some of the classes. Yeah. Then I did a lot of work on thieves. I wanted thieves to be more fun than they were in most other old school games. So thieves now get like shadowy senses, and they can do hasty searches as they're moving through the darkness. A bunch of other little tidbits that I think really help fulfill that like ninja, assassin, scoundrel fantasy that people have.
Cool.
Let's see. The math on the domain system is simplified. I got rid of all the recursive math, so it's like a lot simpler to run domains. You can just do it on a character sheet. The hijinks system for thieves is greatly expanded with a lot new hijinks your thieves can do, and more mechanics for how they work and how they interact with your proficiencies. There's all of the classes got a tiny little bit buffed. All classes get 1 extra proficiency now, which basically avoided a skill tax problem. So like in ACKS I, your cleric didn't start with theology proficiency. So you were like, well, I guess I'd better take theology. And it just felt like a skill tax. So I fixed that. The mercantile system has been totally redone. It's much smoother and more faster to play and a lot more fun. It's also more realistic. The economy got a total overhaul. Tons of new spells, tons of new monsters. So it's much bigger edition than I thought it would be. My initial goal was just, I'll just, take all what I've written, kind of do a consolidated compendium. But then, when Wizards did its perfidious treachery, I got really pissed off, and I was like, to hell with you. So
as well you should, because
before we continue, Ryan, I believe that there was a super chat. Did you miss that one?
No, there was a super chat. It was we had it up for a while, but it just I didn't want you were going on the Satanist.
No, we need to give due diligence to our super chat too.
We absolutely do. It was our buddy Ironcaster. I know that much. First super chat of the night. And he was talking about, so this was even pre when we went to the Satanist, but the Mark Waid situation in the comic sphere. So I don't know how familiar you guys are with that, but it very much parallels what we're seeing with Alex and us and everybody else. So thank you, Ironcaster.
A little bit about that, yeah.
What happened with Mark Waid? I don't know this. I saw Mark Miller's been causing some controversy, but I didn't know about Mark Waid.
The two of them are kind of at war, or rather their fans are, I think.
The internet.
Waid is defending the wokeness to its maximum, and Miller is basically saying that comics have been turned into a shit pool because of these people, and he's promising to try to do something else about it.
Yeah.
So let me see if there's any other comments from the group here.
There's been a lot of good stuff. Everybody's going back and forth quite a bit. Ironcaster, just some more details for you, Alex. He was so awful that in the comic world, they're now referring to him as King Baby. So.
Oh, wow. Huh. See, if he was a true badass, they wouldn't be allowed to refer to him at all.
You shall not speak his name.
Well, that's what the case is with Mark Miller, I think.
It's getting there, isn't it? Right? Yeah, I've been following him. He's been interesting. I like his whole cancel pigs hashtag. That's been fun.
Yeah, good. Excellent term.
What is that? What is that? Because I saw that earlier today, just like an hour ago on Twitter. What is the cancel pigs hashtag? What is that?
It's just a new term Miller came up with for the people that have been taking over the comics industry, basically.
Yeah. It's what used to be called the Outrage Brigade or SJWs or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So you were saying, getting back to our main topic here, Alex, you were saying that the that you've streamlined the math in the kind of Dominion and Stronghold sort of section of your game. Is that right? And
yes.
If so, have you done that? Have you done it in a way that doesn't excessively simplify it? Because I mean, I find that the system you have is not as simple as I would have designed it. But the people who like ACKS obviously like that part of it. It's the part they talk about the most online, right? You see Adventure Crunker.
No, everyone who's played it likes the new system better.
Math without reducing the complexity.
Yes, yeah. So the original game, there was two things that made it more complex. Is that when you were calculating your domain income, some of your expenses were based on your number of families, and then some of your expenses were based on a percentage of your stronghold value. And then number two, there was a recursive income stream where you got 20% of your vassals' income, but your vassals got 20% of their income from their vassals, who got 20% of their income from their vassals, all the way down. And so you ended up needing a spreadsheet. And so what I was able to find was a formula that actually calculated that without needing to have the spreadsheet. And so then it's just a table now. And so you say, okay, this is the sort of realm I rule. So this is the tribute I get from my vassals. So you get to the exact same place. It's not been dumbed down. It's just basically I did back-end mathematical magic so that you don't have to.
Okay.
Another super chat that just came in. Drama time. Removing knock isn't niche protection for the thief. Knock is loud and competes with beat it open with a mace. So,
hey, we have a new spell called Battering Ram that functions the same as that. So Battering Ram will blow a door open if you're a wizard, if you can't get in, and then the thief can quietly pick it. So,
Thank you again for the super chat. Certainly appreciate that. Alex, your Kickstarter just blew it out of the water, and it got a lot of attention despite the things that Pundit was talking about at the front end of the show. Did you get any resistance or friction because of that, he who shall not be named, or did that impact what you thought was going to be your ability to market it?
Oh, I would say the cancellation probably cost me $50K. I looked at my revenue stream and I compared it to the day by day of other games. Now we ended up outperforming Worlds Without Number. We outperformed Old School Essentials. We didn't obviously outperform like Shadow Dark or something, which was at another order of magnitude, but definitely made it top 10 at least for Old School. But if you looked at it, early on I was dominating them, and then after that happened, it definitely became harder to make traction. And so my last couple days weren't as strong. Whereas I think, had my name not been a killing word, maybe it would have been a little easier to spread the news. I'm now getting an interesting trickle of people coming in saying somehow I missed this, and so they're backing me, via late backing on PayPal and things. So so it definitely hurt a bit. Obviously it didn't, it was still my most successful Kickstarter of all time, and way better than my internal projections had been. My internal projection was 100K. So,
well, hats off to you, man.
Famously, I've never done a Kickstarter. Venture's done quite a lot of them. I just get books published and then, sell them as I go along. But my experience is that in some cases, in some products, it looks like it's an either-or situation, right? Now, usually those are these ridiculous kind of, like a lot of the virtue signaling products, but also kind of these ridiculously boutique games that people are buying more to either to virtue signal about or just to have it, but they're not actually going to use it.
Right.
And those sorts of products, when they're on Kickstarter, they'll make the money from the Kickstarter, and then you're never going to hear about them again, right? They just vanish from the face of the earth. But I suspect, because obviously ACKS is not like that whatever you've earned so far, after this, at some point, I assume you're going to have these on sale at regular, retail places, whether it's Amazon or drive-through or wherever.
Absolutely,
and I presume that you're going to keep getting purchases of that. Lion and Dragon is not as popular as ACKS, and I'm still making a lot of money every month from Lion and Dragon, which is like
where do you make most of your money Is it Amazon or DriveThruRPG?
Well, that's very interesting because recently we did it at my publisher for Lion and Dragon and Dark Albion, which is Dom Publishing, which is no longer it doesn't publish anything anymore, right? It's just legacy now. He's just managing my books, basically, those books. He took a look at this, and we did this a study over the course of this year actually, and it turns out that the sales of Lion and Dragon and Dark Albion are almost exactly split down the middle between Amazon and DriveThru. So we have we have the soft and hard covers on Amazon. On DriveThru, we have the softcover, hardcover, and the PDFs, right? And and Amazon's taking almost half of the sales, right? And some months it varies a little bit on one side or the other, but it's always pretty close. And at the end of the year, we averaged it out to like a difference of less than $50 how much.
Wow.
So it's very interesting.
Wow.
Now,
for me, it's been largely driven by DriveThruRPG. My Amazon sales are not very high.
And you're not banned on DriveThru, is that right?
No, I have a very good relationship with the folks on DriveThru. They've been very supportive of all my efforts, and but again, as you guys noted, I actually don't go out of my way to court controversy, right?
No,
like
not at all.
nothing in my games would have even caused anyone to bat an eyelash in any year prior to like 2008, right? Like
not at all.
For all of human history, it would have been milquetoast was the word you used. You know, and now I just get the strangest commentary. Like, for instance, we have a female class that like the Blade Dancer, where she uses swords and is a divine caster. So instead of maces, they use swords. I'll get a review and be like, this is obviously a statement about menstruation. I'm like, no, it's a statement about the fact that like I had this cool book I read by Jennifer Roberson called Blade Singer about a spellcaster who used a sword. What the fuck is your problem?
What's the logic behind? Like, how do you go from A to B with that?
I don't know. I wake up and I log on to the internet and it feels like I am assailed by lunatics. Like, I don't mind if someone wants to hate me for who I am. Hate me, fine. You know, I live with my choices. I don't apologize for them. I don't ask anyone to forgive them. Like, hey, if you want to hate me for who I am, hate me for who I am. But like, they make up ridiculous stuff and then hate me for it. Like one guy on your forum, right? He said I was personally responsible for the deaths of dozens, if not hundreds, of people. This Frank
Was it forum on the RPG site?
No, we discussed it on the RPG site. It was on some other website. Yeah. This is personally responsible for the deaths of dozens or hundreds of people. It's like, bro, if you thought I was personally responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people, your dick would shrivel. You wouldn't even mention my name. Right? But I guess, well, now they don't mention my name, so I don't know. Maybe they do think I'm responsible for the deaths of hundreds of people.
Shame on you, you evil totalitarian.
It's crazy. No,
Ryan, it's time to put up the meme of Mugatu from Zoolander. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
Yeah, no, for real. There's that scene in Aliens when she's like, did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
I feel like that line never really like hits most of the audience who's watching that. It's one of those things where you go like, oh yeah, like you gotta think about it, and like a couple seconds after it's said, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. It's not like an immediate. I don't know. That's like one of the low points of that entire movie. Like, because everything is like so high, and then, but I feel like that line just catches everybody. They're like, okay.
That's one of my favorite lines.
Is it?
Yeah, I love that
No,
line. I use it on
so,
Twitter all the time.
You're so highbrow, you motherfucker. You guys so goddamn fancy.
I'm not highbrow. I just have a receding hairline, man.
Some of the nonsense that people come up with is really funny, and this is, you know, in my case now they've just, you know, Mike Merle's just got fired from Hasbro, from Wizards of the Coast. And I saw somewhere someone pointed out to me on Reddit, you know, like, and again, I'm not banned from Reddit, and my name isn't banned from Reddit, but basically,
Reddit, that means you saw.
it's a cesspool of leftists, right? And so that they will always attack anyone who posts anything nice about me or my games there. They'll, they'll downvote and they'll, whatever. And then with this Merles thing, they're like, oh yeah, so we finally got justice. Merles was fired for the terrible things he did. And they're like, well, wait, what did he do, right? And then inevitably they come up with the whole thing about Zach Smith, right? They're like, Merles let Zach Smith be a consultant, and he didn't somehow retroactively know 4 years before it would come to light that Zach Smith would be accused of partner abuse of women, and so because
he probably didn't even do. Now we know. I mean, we always knew he was an asshole, but now we know that also he probably didn't do that shit he was accused of. So
it hasn't panned out, anyways. And the thing is, then they'll say, oh yeah, and Mike, when people said that Zach Smith was sexually harassing them, he when they told Mike Merles this on emails, he sent those emails to Zach so he could harass them more, and that's a complete lie. I was there. It didn't happen, right? And then inevitably someone jumps in and, oh yeah, and he also made like his other big consultant was RPG Pundit, who's a neo-Nazi, and I'm like, well, somebody better tell the Bro SR that, dude. I'm pretty sure I've got pretty good bona fides of not being a neo-Nazi,
Well, I mean, the people that are calling you a neo-Nazi probably also believe that the Israelis are neo-Nazis.
Oh yeah, no, of course. These are the same people that are saying Israel is committing genocide. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just where we are, right? Like at this point, like I have a very good friend of mine that I went to law school with. He was my roommate in law school. He co-founded my first company with me. Conservative Jewish attorney, works in Manhattan. He's like got called a Nazi the other day. And he's like, "What planet am I living in?" Like, what?
Well, at least he was already a conservative. I've got a lot of Jewish friends.
Oh no, I mean conservative Jewish. Like that's the denomination.
Conservative Jewish in the sense of the denomination. I see, right? Because I've got a lot of friends who are Jewish right now who are becoming massively red-pilled, right? Like I just saw, I had this guy that was always, he was basically a kind of globalist WEF guy, right? Very nice man, but he had completely bought into this idea of the kind of, the progressive liberal globalist concept, right? That was the potential for utopia. And all of a sudden I see him posting shit that it's like, I couldn't believe, right? I never would have imagined him posting this stuff because he's like been completely turned around when he realized, holy shit, these people want me to die. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But there's still the contingent, and Pundit, you and I talked about it on Twitter, I think, that blows my mind is the folks that are still, they were very liberal Jews, and they're still holding on to that. Like, they refuse to give up that identity, and it's mind-blowing just, to see that they're willing to ostrich the whole situation. But we're not talking about that, right?
Some people, because it's a paradigm shattering experience, and some people will just hide their head and say, no, this isn't happening. It can't possibly be happening, because the alternative is that they've been wrong their entire lives.
Exactly. Yeah. And I've had some paradigm shifting experiences myself. Like, in early 2000s, I was a very avid supporter of the war on terror. I consulted to the Department of Defense and helped them work on surveillance stuff using massively multiplayer games. Like, I look back, I regret that stance. I think I was wrong. But I think that's sort of adulthood, is continuing to update your beliefs based on new wisdom and new knowledge, right? And not getting locked into either, a particular ideology that imprisons you, or even worse, just going with whatever they say on CNN or Fox and thinking that's truth.
Some more comments from the live chat here. DMC Draws says, honestly, the way people went after Alex is what motivated me to buy his book. Not that his ideas don't sound interesting and great on their own, but I can't stand bullies. My experience as another guy who has been constantly attacked by the left is that every time that they do attack you, unless you fall for it in a way,
right?
If you stand up, then it never works, right? Like, every single time people have tried to cancel me, I've come out of it better known and making more money. You know, so like I am no longer afraid at all of being canceled by any of these people.
Yeah. I mean, it's our society is kind of pillarized into two different groups, and I don't think it's really possible to reach both groups too well anymore. I think you can probably do it for a while, but James Raggi, look at what happened to him. Now what's happening with Goodman Games. Like at some point you get called to pick a team. Yeah. And you eventually have to go one way or the other. Crafty Matt has a question for you, Alex. He says, sorry to ask again. Now that the Kickstarter has ended, we have 2 PDFs. When will the 3rd PDF be completed? Inquiring Princeps would like to know. It will be completed when I have fixed the math error.
So that's where the math error was.
Yes. I am struggling through the complexities of a math error concealed somewhere within an Excel spreadsheet with over 400 columns that I created 11 years ago. So, jeez.
Hey, welcome DMC Draws, our latest member to the.
This is clearly very different from mine.
Yeah. So as soon as I get that solved, I'll be able to update all of the battle ratings and the creature prices and everything, and get the monster manual sent out.
Isn't math just white supremacy anyway?
My next
Would it be less racist to just like let the error be?
So like my next upcoming game, Baptism of Fire, is going to have a domain and kind of stronghold and that sort of thing. It's a domain management system, but it's going to be way more abstracted than what you have in Adventure Conquer King. Let's see what else we've got here. So Ben says Mike Merles will be the next host of Inappropriate Characters. Well, hope springs eternal, I guess.
I like Mike Merles.
You know him. Ask him.
Like he's a good guy. I did an interview with him on The Escapist. We chatted about 4th edition, old school stuff. He's a good guy. He's like the last of the actual gamers that worked at WotC.
And he might have the handcuffs off now to do more interviews and speak a little more freely, because Yeah,
we'll see which way he goes, right? Because he certainly did go along with part of the woke bandwagon there, but it was, I think, a survival choice that he made. That was
they already stuffed him in a closet. What else are you got to do?
It didn't work for him in the end because they kicked him off of Dungeons and Dragons anyways. But I can understand that he thought that was his best option. But I had pointed out before Mike Merles was removed from D&D, I had said it multiple times to people, because there were a bunch of people that are like, yeah, we should, Mike Merles should get out because he's just another wokeist. I'm like, no, hang on. I know these people. And Mike Merles is the only guy holding back the flood, right? I said this in my previous video on my YouTube the other day. And I was absolutely right, because you look at before and after Mike Merles. Before Mike Merles, there was some levels of kind of social justicing going on in some of the books, but then after Mike Merles, suddenly the books become just completely useless and become these things that are just entirely about woke propaganda, and the book sales have plummeted as well. So. It was absolutely the fact that he was the one kind of restraining force that still wanted to make the game more about being the game than something else.
Our good friend Judd Goswick had a very good point too. I'll bet his severance package comes complete with an NDA, and that's probably accurate.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, they're big on NDAs in Hasbro. I'll tell you that much. Let me see what else we've got here. Got 2 from Zoolander. Venture said, I put math errors in my game on purpose to combat my inherent whiteness. Good one, then.
Thank you.
Oh, my God.
Adino the Esnite says, sad thing is Merles is a great designer. I remember when I first recognized the name with Iron Heroes, but he did work with Monte Cook, then WotC, so he definitely was hit with SJW concepts. Yeah. I was noticing some things about the recent spate of firings, since we're on the subject now, And it's interesting when you look at the list of people from WotC or that were fired, right? Besides Mike Merles, you had certain other people, right? Dan Dillon, and then most of the other ones are less known people. But the ones and I don't know all of them, but the ones that I see there were all people who had two particular qualities that were notable, right? The first was that they were all kind of actual designers, gamers. They were people who understood the industry and the hobby. So they were the ones that were still had some level of capacity to do the job, right? Because all the new people that they've gotten since then, all the other people are basically dilettantes. Tons of them have played D&D for almost no time, right? Like for some of them were hired after having only started playing D&D, never mind doing any kind of design work, for like 2 or 3 years, right? Some of the people they hired on Radiant Citadel had never played D&D until they were hired, and may not have played it after that in any serious sense either, right? And so that's one thing, that they took out all the remaining people that were like the technically minded people, right? I pointed out that Mike Merles, he made the most successful WotC edition of D&D ever, 5th edition. And then he went on to be a key player in Baldur's Gate 3, right? Which is the only thing that made money for Hasbro this quarter. And then he went on
third quarter.
Yeah, and then he went on to work in Magic the Gathering, where he made Hasbro approximately another $100 million, right? So the guy's literally made billions for Hasbro, and they got rid of him, right? But people like Ajit George and Mackenzie the Armas, who have literally lost fortunes for Hasbro, are still there, And that's the other quality, is that if you look at the list of these people, all the people that have been mentioned, almost all of them are white people, right? With a couple of exceptions. Vanessa Quanon, who is, I'm not sure if she's Southeast Asian of background, and Paul Cheon, who's Korean. But we all know that from the point of view of the progressive stack, Asians are essentially white people too. Right?
Yeah, so, you're out, Asians.
Instead of making a choice on the basis of who are the people who are actually productive in the company, their choice appears to have been based entirely on diversity segregation.
Here's a list of the people that are now white: Jews, Asians, Canadians, Europeans. Who else?
Some Native Americans are now white, right?
Yeah. Some Hispanics.
If you use Latino or Latina, that you might as well be white.
If you're Hispanic and you come from a communist or socialist country, and you're more likely to vote Republican, then you are definitely white.
So like Cubans.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Venezuelans.
Yep.
Certainly Uniform says white adjacent is, I believe, the term.
Yeah.
I saw a post the other day that said that black men are the white men of black people.
Yeah.
That about sums it up. You can look it up, man. It was an actual news article.
What does that mean?
It means that black men are the white men of black people.
Who does that leave left? Black women?
Yeah, basically.
Man, why are you?
Is this a riddle?
Only two genders?
Is this
in the United States? Increasingly, the demographic of the Democratic Party at this point is essentially middle class white women, black,
college educated,
women of color, right, and some. Well, and basically an increasingly tiny percentage of men of color and a tiny handful of male feminists. Like that.
All right, so I just found it. It was on The Root. So it's literally at theroot.com, and the headline is, and I put it in the chat for you guys, straight black men are the white people of black people.
Yeah.
That's amazing. By the way,
maybe because they're straight. But how many gay black men are there? I mean, what's the percentage? Like 2%?
Well, there's
Maybe?
more gay black men than there are straight black men because the straight black men are white men.
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah.
So, yeah. In
Alex,
fact,
I dropped out of law school. I can't follow this.
I think, in fact, by
Boba
this
Fett's
definition,
still white,
all
right?
black men are gay, right? Because if they aren't, I don't know. I can't.
There it is for everybody that's out there in the chat.
It's just
straight
lunacy.
black men are the white people of black people. It feels counterintuitive to suggest that straight black men as a whole possess any sort of privilege. The subheadline's even more ridiculous. Oh,
yeah.
Yikes.
When are we going to get to, as a society, when are we going to get to the point, and God willing, it's going to be soon, where privilege just means like making better life choices, and then yielding those results from your objectively better choices than someone next to you made?
I don't know, man.
Do you mean
As soon as I
actions
start
have
making
consequences?
some good life choices, I'll let you know.
Question for Alex.
Well, you need to get out there like Antifa and start like burning shit down. That's the only way to get anywhere in life and not pay back your loans. I mean, that's
Apparently, I'm still paying back my stupid Harvard law loans forever.
If
Yes,
only you
there
would
will
vote
be.
for Joe Biden, that would go away.
Yes, of course. Extra printed copies on the website when the books are released. I'm ordering extra to be able to guarantee that. Yes.
So with this WotC thing, when it first hit, I really had this, I don't know, this moment where I was probably drunk, but I was hopeful that this might have been like the start of a Phoenix moment, right? This could be birth from the ashes. We know why they did it. They did it because Pundit alluded to it, right? Baldur's Gate 3 floated their entire last quarter.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a float this time. And when you make cuts like that on a balance sheet to the shareholders, it's the same as revenue. The big question that I have is, are we setting ourselves up for even a more hilarious year next year? Because I don't think we're going to see a moment where they, right the ship, so to speak. Do we have to just cross our fingers and hope that we don't get more DEI hires and more placements of people that are just going to further, rip that IP down? Or what do you guys think? Is there any chance that this could be used for a positive for the IP?
Well, it's an interesting question because, I saw a lot of people were saying, oh, they fired all these people and all these people were woke, right? Mike Merles, all the people I mentioned, right? Those are all woke people. I'm like, well, but everybody in Wizards would count as woke people, right? And what they actually did is they fired probably the people that were less about being woke, so they actually did an internal party purge of the moderates, let's say moderates from their in a very relative sense, right? Now, the one thing that is interesting is that they got rid of a lot of the people that were associated with a lot of their kind of live shows of actual play and stuff like that, which means that they've given up on trying to compete with Critical Role, I think. And there's a lot of indication from some of the people that they fired that it strengthens an argument that I've been saying for a while, which is that when 1D&D starts, they're going to try to go absolutely all in on the virtual tabletop, and this increases. I'm not saying it's 100% a sure thing, but it strongly increases my theory that 1D&D, they're going to publish the 3 core books maybe as dead tree books, and then maybe they'll do like some kind of a special collectible thing once a year or something like that, and that's it. And I think everything else is going to go on the virtual tabletop. Now, if that's true, though, it means that some of the people that were in the part of writing books are probably going to be either let go, or depending on how they were working. They're working by like temporary contracts, just not renewed to do anything else, because the sort of things that you'll have to do in terms of making adventures for play on the VTT are going to be very different from the kind of books that we've seen today, right? Like stuff like Wild Beyond the Witchlight, or the what was the one about the magical university with the coffee shop? I forget its name.
Strixhaven.
Those are not going to work as VTT products. Meatball, don't knock over my camera.
Oh, Meatball. Wow,
I wanted to go
Meatball.
back and answer Ryan's question directly. So,
Okay.
So Sarah Hoyt, the author, came up with a term she calls roll left and die. And so Sarah's analysis was that when things start to go bad in a media company that is woke, that it actually, even though the reason they're going badly is because it's gone woke, they will go even further woke. And the reason is it's the tragedy of the commons. Every single individual creator who would try and go the other direction would bear all of the risk of doing that. So if someone stands up and says, we need to lean right, they bear all of the risk. They will take all of the suffering, even though the reward will be shared across the company. Whereas if you're in charge and you lean further left, if you roll further left, and then it just continues to fail, then you can blame the audience for being bigots and bad people and hop on to another company that will be eager to hire you because you've proven your progressive values. And so she wrote a whole essay about this, and she tracked how this always happens. I saw this myself at Defy Media. So I was running, I was given the website break.com, which was supposed to be a men's comedy channel. And for 3 years prior, it had been moving into more and more progressive commentary to where it was essentially essentially turning into a BuzzFeed rather than men's comedy. And I am immune to the tragedy of the commons. So I just decided to go ahead and shift it back to Heartland Men where it needed to be. And the website took off and was a tremendous success. And we did, we were doing billions and billions of video views. And the response I got from Defy Media was that my editorial values didn't match the company's values.
Amazing.
So, yeah. There's something related to this, which is now, for example, in Wizards of the Coast and in Hasbro, in fact, the top executives are all basically mercenaries, right? They're people that were brought in, a lot of them from IBM for some reason. Or no, sorry, from Microsoft. I mean to say, I had IBM in my head because of the Project Veritas guy. But no, they were from Microsoft. And these are people who have no allegiance to Hasbro doing well, right? Chris Cox fired all these people, and it's been a bad year for Hasbro, and he got a $9 million bonus, right? This is to them, there's no consequences if Hasbro fails, right? They'll just move on to the next corporation,
Before someone else jumps in there, I want to
feeds the whole going woke bandwagon, because there's no profit motive personal to the people in charge, to the executives, because the shareholders won't stand up to them, right? And so that they have nothing to lose. It doesn't matter to them if Hasbro ends up sinking.
Things were getting bad though. The shareholders were rattling sabers that they might get a spine. Chris Miller, $5 super chat. Thank you very much. The only thing that decides what race a person is allowed to be is their political affiliation. All conservatives are white to social justice warriors. Yeah, hard to argue with that point for sure. No, I hear what you're saying, pundit. I don't know. Without Baldur's Gate, which, as predicted, bounced them up, and it wasn't a dead cat bounce, and now with these cuts, shareholders are going to be satisfied, right? They've seen a significant gain. I anticipate them to see 25 to 30% gains from the lows that were before the Baldur's Gate numbers. So there's no incentive for the shareholders to really do anything. You can have a dog shit company and have a great stock, and vice versa too. It's tough. Some people are going to have to really start to consider, and I'm guilty of this too, of not doing this, always investing with my ethics, right? I invest for gain, and we really have to maybe reevaluate our position. Now, there are certain things that are just off the board, but I played the Hasbro game. I shorted it all the way down, and prior to the third quarter, I got in, not long, but in to pick up this what I thought was going to be a 10 to 15% gain.
Okay, so my financial advice is to put all your money into Bud Lights. 6 months ago. So you find a time machine, go back 6 months ago, put everything you have, bet it all on Bud Light, and then just sit back and watch the cash in from the Dylan Mulvaney. No, I'm kidding, obviously. Hey, can we get to self-promotion? Because
I noticed that Ginger made a passive-aggressive post on the chat about how we need to get to the self-promotion.
I saw that. Last thing, we got another super chat.
It was me desperately pleading because we're going up against my bedtime. Pretty soon it's gonna be like,
James Cole, we will come back to your super chat. We just got a super chat from James Cole. Question for Alex. We will start after the shilling with that super chat. So we will return to that. Venger, do you want to go first, little man?
I'll show you, little man.
Hey.
Here we go.
All right.
Just gonna tuck my shirt in.
Yeah.
I haven't tucked my shirt in for no one.
Go ahead, my friend. You
I'm from the streets.
You can go first here. What have you got for us?
Have you ever heard of a game, or rather a campaign setting called Jobless?
I have.
Well, there you go. All right, that's half the battle right there. What have I got? The last thing I think I was showing was the Chalt X cards. Still using them in my home Chalt game, and they're still, which was yesterday. They're still awesome. This is my own little campaign log for the new Chalt campaign that I'm running. The most recent stuff, though, is the biggest thing would be Under Fuchsia Sky, which is the Chalt webcomic. I finally got that done. Me doing the words and the story, and Jay Tanaka doing the artwork. He's done a lot of great illustration for the cover of Wretched New Flesh for Red Room. So that's cool. That's a $10 PDF on DriveThruRPG. I've got a new one that's just gonna come online in probably tomorrow. DriveThru just has to push a button because it's in the queue. Because I'm relegated to a noob on DriveThruRPG, where every single step has to be approved, or someone has to push a button for things to get going. Nothing is fast tracked, which I think is fine. I kind of feel like Donald Trump, where so much attention is placed on me because obviously I'm so special that I need to be handled all the time with handlers and kid gloves and the special asbestos spatula and all that stuff. Anyway, so that coming maybe tomorrow is Shiny Object Syndrome. Eric Fabiashi from Swords and Sewing, or Sorcery and Needlepoint, or whatever his blog is.
Swords and Stitchery.
Yeah, that's the one. He actually used. I sent it to him along with Kickstarter backers. I sent him a review copy, and he used it later that day, and he was really grateful because he was doing a Alpha Blue Red Room kind of thing, and he needed some female NPCs, and what the book is about is you start off with these misconnections, sort of you see this girl, this NPC, somewhere in the game, the players, and their characters see this woman, and then but something goes happens, or they see her from afar or whatever, or they see a video of her, maybe in an elevator, or when you're pumping gas, the little video thing comes up, and they have no way of interacting with her then. And then later, if it's a one shot later in that session, or if it's a campaign, maybe the next session, they see her again and like under different circumstances, different context. And then so you're slowly building up to actually interacting with her in real time. And so that just creates like a whole different dynamic than what players are used to. And it's not the be all end all of the session or the campaign, but I'm hoping it's like a really cool added, benefit or bonus or something, some extra thing where, I don't know. A lot of times game masters focus on like the combat or like the exploration. Just doesn't seem very often that game masters focus on social interaction of the three pillars. And that's one of the things that I try to focus on, because it just seems like it's such a niche aspect of gaming and game mastering. What else we got? We got the Chult GPT, Purple Islands Majesty. The first Chult GPT is just a free PDF. It's just like dialogue of people playing a game that was created like Chat GPT, but it's Chult GPT. So, and then this new one is, I think it's like $3 for the PDF, and they go to the Purple Islands, so you get to see that. It's funny and it's weird, and maybe gives people an insight into my own game mastering practices and my own gaming experiences. I think that's it. I'm going to launch a Kickstarter in like a week or two, and but you'll have to wait and see what that's like, because that's on the hush hush right now. I think that's it.
Venger, Legion of Myth has an important question for you. He says, "Can I play a banana man in Chult?"
Yeah, duh. I'd be insulted if you didn't, Hoss.
I'm pretty sure in World of the Last Sun you could be a banana man if you have the Gonzo Fantasy Companion. So there we go.
Well, there you go. Two great tastes that taste weird together.
There you go.
Excellent. Next up, Pundit, what's going on in your world?
All right. Well, right now the newest product I have out is the Pundit Files #1, which is available on the Red Room's web store. So you have to go to the Red Room's website. That's Red Room backwards, the Red Room backwards, moredirect.com. And you'll find that they've got a whole bunch of really great products there. So check out the rest of their stuff too. Pundit Files, like RPG Pundit Presents, is going to be a periodical of short supplements of all different kinds. Pundit Files #1 is Tables to Shake Up Your Campaign, which is a 13-page book that has a whole series of random tables to generate campaign shaking events, right? Like large-scale events that you can use if your game has become a bit stale, or if you just want to add some new crisis into the mix, with a variety of different themes. And every 2 weeks we'll be doing another one and another issue, and they're going to be all kinds of different things. So, for example, issue 2 is coming out it should come out on the 26th of December, and it's going to be an adventure called The Dead City. And we're going to keep bringing these out, and they're available in PDF form on the Red Room for the, I think, very reasonable price of about $3.50. So there you are. And and also coming up soon is Baptism of Fire, which is my latest bigger book that is going to be. It's going to have, first of all, a kind of a new expanded edition, you could say, of the Lion and Dragon rules. The fundamental rules aren't changing, but I'm adding in a bunch of content that was either from the Old School Companion or other products that I put that I think are worthy of being in the main rules, and a few alterations, obviously, to fit the fact that Baptism of Fire, instead of being set in 15th century England, is being set in 10th and 11th century Poland, and it's going to be a really great book. With it's going to have a complete setting and a complete system in it. And it was supposed to come out before the end of the year. Now, Chris Miller is here, and he hasn't said anything to the contrary. But given that it takes like 2 weeks at least for, as Venger was pointing out, for drive-through to actually do the proof copy and everything, I'm suspecting, and maybe Chris can confirm, that it's more likely now to come out in January of 2024. But I guess he can confirm or deny that. So check those out, and check out all my other products. There's on any of my videos on YouTube, you can find a complete list of links to all of my different books. Chris Miller just said their Baptism of Fire is going to be an awesome book. Pundit has done a fantastic job. Well, I have, but Chris is also doing an incredible job as usual, of the layout and the artwork and the maps and all of that stuff. So that's all credit to him. Yeah, keep your eyes open for that in January. And meanwhile, check out the Pundit Files, which are going to be full of great stuff that you can use basically in any OSR game, but of course, especially if you're a fan of my games and settings like Lion and Dragon and Sword and Caravan. And I guess that's it for now.
All right, Alex.
All right. And my face is frozen just in time for this important moment.
Your face froze just at the perfect moment, didn't it? I'll tell you what. We'll
yeah. Yeah. I mean, what's happening for me right now is Adventure Conquer King System Imperial Imprint. If you come onto my Discord and reach out to me, we can work something out for late backing. I'm mostly handling it via PayPal. Not all of the backer tiers are available anymore, but I'm definitely getting a tail end of folks coming in and making some purchases. You can also check out my web store, which is at autarkemporium.com, or you can also check out my Autark store at DriveThruRPG for my products. Right now my attention is 100% ACKS II, but I will be returning to some other projects as soon as I get all those PDFs out to everybody.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And that was short and sweet. I am still gathering coin to pay the bills for Nerdcognito and the associated hosting and stuff. And since I don't like to beg, we did do another t-shirt release. Last month, it was literally days after the announcement, but we were fortunate enough to finally be approved as an Amazon partner. And so Amazon is handling all of our merch, which makes the merch very, very affordable. And we have this limited edition Gatekeeping is Good t-shirt so that you can, let everyone know that there ain't going to be no shenanigans at your table. Wear it loud, wear it proud. $20, and we get a little taste, but the beauty of having Amazon is we are able to get that cost down to $20, and it ships free with Prime. Those of you that are international, if you are looking for this stuff and you can't find it, just send a message to the Nerdcognito ladies on Twitter. We can put it on international sites, but it has to go up by request, and we will happily accommodate that. We've done that already a little bit. All you need to do is go to Amazon.com, search for Nerdcognito, and or Gatekeeping is Good, and you'll see that and all of the other shirts so that we can keep the lights on for 2024. There's a couple other things that I have, but nothing that's cooking right now is quite ready to be announced. So that'll bring us to the end of the shilling stage of tonight. Now, we promised that we would come back to James Cole's question, and it was for Alex, and it was, have you ever wanted to make a sandbox version of ACKS? James, thank you so very, very much for the super chat.
Sandbox video game
version.
Yeah,
video game version.
I think about it every day. Absolutely. I mean, I spent, the majority of my career in video game marketing and video game media. So of course. I think that would be fantastic. I just have never, I've never felt like I had the resources. Although I guess if I could do 300,000 for a tabletop game, I could maybe do the same for a Steam game and pull something together at this point. But as I said, that came as a surprise. So yeah, totally. Would love that.
No, very, very cool. Very cool. If all the stars aligned and resources and availability kicked in, I have no idea. You are the industry expert there. What would the timeline be if, January 1, the angel investor flies in?
I mean, it really depends on the scope of it. It depends on
Right?
the scope of the game. Yeah. Video games take a long time to develop, particularly good ones. So, and the thing with ACKS is that what makes ACKS special is that it has kind of multiple tiers of play. And so you couldn't just do a straight up, rogue-like hex crawler or something. It has to be a game more like XCOM, where you've got the strategic component and the tactical component, and then the character building component. So something close to like Fantasy XCOM would probably be close to like what an ACKS sandbox game could be like, where you have your settlement, you send out your adventurers, you deal with large scale threats, etc.
That's spectacular. Pundit, do you want to talk about our good friends at Goodman Games?
Well, we could. Let me just take a quick look at anything that we might have missed from the live chat here. A lot of people say that when Venture talks about Chalt, they think of Chalt, C-H-U-L-T. And let's see what else here. L says, Pundit Files, the truth is out there, trust no one. All right. Let's see what else. Chris Miller says, yes, I've had a lot of trouble with the artwork and I'm not confident drive-through will print the book in time, but I'll do my best. Okay, very good. That's fair enough. Eldrad Wolfsbane has to say, got to admit, recent fundraisers, I guess he means crowdfunders, prove that the OSR is very much alive. Well, my continuing to have a steady income has proven that to me anyways. But yes, I think the OSR continues to be productive. And one of the things I could point out is that if Dungeons and Dragons does end up going 100% to like virtual tabletop, or almost 100% to virtual tabletop, that's only going to open up the market for a lot of people. Certainly some of the bigger players will benefit from that. From the space that is left behind there, but also it means that the OSR will benefit in the same way that the first thing that motivated the OSR to become a really big movement was 4th edition, the failure of 4th edition D&D, right? So I think that anyone who thinks that the OSR is kind of running out of steam or something is pretty much mistaken. It's just such a brilliant design system. All right, so in terms of oh, sorry, one more thing. Death Angel Shadow says Pundit is missing something. Where is this jacket? Right. Well, yeah, it's right now. It's summer here. It's like it's 11 at night here, and I think it's about 30 degrees Celsius, which is like about 90 degrees Fahrenheit.
Give me the cold. I can't say that because it's now cold for us, right? And I've been cursing it every day, but shit, 30. That's warm. That's warm.
So yeah, you guys aren't going to see me with my smoking jacket anytime soon now. So yeah, as far as Goodman Games is concerned, I mean, I commented on this in one of my videos not too long ago, obviously. So the thing that happened, for anybody who doesn't know, is that Goodman Games announced a like indie creators summit, and they put out a little ad for it with showing headshots of all the people that were involved. And almost all of them were people that were associated with Goodman Games, right? Plus a couple of other people from the OSR. And it seemed to me like my first impression when I saw it as well, that looks really underwhelming, right? It looks like just an in-shop, circle jerk of the Goodman Games crowd, right? but incredibly, the woke people were absolutely outraged because basically everybody that they highlighted were white people, and so then Goodman Games, people thought, oh, so like Goodman Games is being attacked by the woke people, so they're I'm sure that they're going to fight back, right? And I said, you guys don't know Goodman Games. Before Ryan was here, our previous co-host was Joe Bittman, who had worked at Goodman, and he had made it really clear to us that Goodman Games was like incredibly internally woke, and so they're not going to fight back, and true to my prediction, they almost immediately put out this fawning letter of apology and then redid the thing, adding in a bunch of people of color, basically, who are also people that nobody had ever heard of. Like they just and like in one case, like some people like had to do some research and they found that like some of the people that they had there were like, like the ad director for Goodman and stuff like that, like people that they just had around the office that happened to be people of color.
Wow.
And at the same time, this caused people to start looking more into Goodman Games, and they noticed that in like the earlier print runs of Dungeon Crawl Classics, in the introduction, they were talking about how we owe a great debt to these early giants of the hobby like Gygax and Arneson, and then suddenly when you get to like the 9th or 10th printing, they took that out, and they instead the statement in that exact same section said, we celebrate the diversity of the hobby, and they literally erased the names of the, let's say, the founding fathers of the RPG scene, and then when asked about it, Goodman claimed that, we didn't realize that we did that. Like, how the hell did you not realize that you did that? That's just such nonsense, It was obviously a very intentional change. So yeah, but Goodman has been woke for a really long time. Their main product, Dungeon Crawl Classics, the original game, I have to say, is an incredible game. Right, I've been running the longest DCC campaign in human history. It's been running for 11 years now. That's my Last Sun thing. So like my World of the Last Sun setting book, the reason it's not a rule book is because it's based on the DCC rules, right? So I couldn't just redo those, So instead, it's a generic setting book, but the campaign that I ran it with, and I continue to run it with to this day, is Dungeon Crawl Classics. But of course, I would never buy anything new from them today,
Right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you don't want to give your money to Goodman Games after this, check out World of the Last Sun and the Gonzo Fantasy Companion, which are definitely in the same genre. So yeah, that's what I have to say about it. I don't know if you guys have something to add about that.
I mean, that was well said. That was a better summary than I could have given.
And everything they did was so measured and transparent, and they telegraphed it too, because we talked about it months ago. It was one of the first shows that I was here with you guys. It's just so disappointing. It's such a disappointment because these are legitimately things. Like you said, Pundit, DCC had a space at a lot of our tables, mine included. And it was a rough 2023 for a lot of realizations that things that we like that have passed on may not come back. And that it's just unfortunate. I don't want to dwell on it. Peeking through the chat here.
Well, I wanted to point out another thing on the chat here, changing the subject.
Yeah.
Eldrad Wolfsbane has a comment here. He says, I think the OSR needs its own critical role, and you guys need to be the ones who do it. And I'm sorry, Eldrad, but I completely disagree. Like the last thing the OSR needs is its critical role. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the bad things that has happened to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition is that the people who have the dominant influence now over 5th edition are not the designers, right? Like they're not, in the way that guys like Gygax and Arneson in TSR, or or a lot of the great designers of the 2nd edition period, or the early designers in Wizards of the Coast, right? those were all people that were the ones that people looked at to see, you know, like, well, what, you know, they if anybody was the stars of the hobby, it was them, right? And that was important because those are people who understood the game. And one of the terrible things that's happened in Dungeons and Dragons is that now the people of influence are, for the most part, these influencers on Twitter, on Twitch, and on YouTube that are not necessarily knowledgeable about the game. They're just good showmen, you know, and that has damaged in some ways the quality of the hobby. And so the OSR, being a design school, obviously for almost all of its history, the OSR, the people who have been influential, let's say, in the OSR are the successful game designers in the OSR. And that's part of what's kept the OSR being so dynamic and being part of the vanguard of the creative side of the hobby, right? Like, ironically, the OSR has a level of creative ability that makes the Forge look so pathetic in comparison, right? Like, and all of these other kind of little indie movements that came up, because it has just this incredible combination of being all the games are intercompatible with each other, so you can buy products from different creators and mesh them up in your own campaign. There's a variety of different rule sets, there's a ton of different settings, and there's a ton of really creative adaptations of the kind of base D&D rules that allow you to run specific genres, specific styles, and specific settings. And if that kind of changes to, like, you know, where like YouTubers, whether it's like YouTube commentators who don't design games, or whether it's live players, you know, that become celebrity D&D actors or something like that, end up being the ones that have the influence in the OSR, that's basically going to wreck the whole thing, you know, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't know if you two agree with that, but that's my position on it.
Mm-hmm. Alex, what do you think?
So my problem with Critical Role, and it might have even been Pundit who said this, but I saw it on Twitter, it's not original to me, you know, is that it is to playing an RPG like porn is to sex, right? Like, it's a performance, it's not the real thing. And if you go into the act thinking that's what it's going to be like, you're going to be misled. And so
I did come up with that. It was in one of my early videos.
Yeah. So, but I do think there's real value in all of us getting out there and doing actual play videos. And I'm certainly doing that. I'm running every week. I do an actual play video with my old college gaming group that I pulled back together, and just show how it's actually done, show how it's actually played, and the success of that and the fun of it comes through, and people watch it and they get it. And if they watch it and they're like, that's not for me, that's okay. The hobby doesn't have to be for everybody, and I've made my peace with that. So I guess I don't have this strong averse reaction to influencers that Pundit does, maybe just because I spent a lot of my career in that space. So I don't have like a strong negative to it. I just think that the sort of influence we want to have would be different, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Totally. Emery has a $20 super chat. Thank you so very much. The PC, as in political correct, assault on pop culture and cult fandom is like, this is so true. It's like watching Aesop's Fable, the old man, the boy, and the donkey play out in real time. Thank you so much, not only for the $20 super chat, we always appreciate those, but for really some good perspective on that. I am sort of, I don't know. The whole influencer thing drives me crazy because what they do with both actual plays and, you know, brand builders and things like that, they devalue what we're all here to do, which is the game, right? I've been on this very introspective and reflective moment in my life, and I've really looked back, and one of the very few things, there's probably 4 or 5 things in my world that were consistent for me through both good times and bad, and one of them was the game, right? Was the camaraderie, the understanding, just the experience. And so when I see this glitzy bastardization version of what nobody plays like that. Nobody plays like that. It's not an actual representation. And for me, actual plays, and this is where I'm going to disagree with Alex, with some incredibly rare exceptions, for me, it's like watching paint dry, right? If I'm not there and I'm not part of that game, I can't get invested in it. And I'm like, I want to play. I'm not going to watch people play in a game. I want to be the one that's playing that game. So maybe it's me being selfish too. But, there is no happy medium between the two. It is both ends of the spectrum. And in my opinion, both ends of the spectrum are not great content-wise. So I got to pass. I've played in some games online that were streamed with some of my friends before. And you always feel like you're on, as opposed to, hey, pass me the Cheez-Its because I've got to figure out what my next turn is before it comes around. So
yeah, I get what you're saying. I've often said that Critical Role is not a group of people playing D&D. It's a group of improv actors doing an improv stage show of people playing D&D. Right. And here in the live chat, TS said Critical Role needs Bill the Elf, and what he's referring to is Bill the Elf is one of my players of my DCC campaign, and he has a YouTube channel. And on that channel, what he does is he records the audio recording of our games every 2 weeks, every time we play, and then he puts it up on YouTube there. So if you want to see how I run World of the Last Sun, you can go on there and listen to usually a 4-hour video of me running World of the Last Sun, and you can see that it's an incredible group. We laugh like crazy because it's obviously World of the Last Sun is it being a gonzo game is extremely comedic. However, each video that he puts up there gets maybe like 50 views, right? Like it's never going to be a hit. And that's because watching people actually play, it's like watching people fishing, right? Like fishing is only really exciting or fun if you're the one doing it, it's kind of that's how it turns out to be. But I agree, having an example for people to see or hear of the game being played has its place, and it has a value to it, but the thing is to turn that into a successful YouTube or Twitch channel, you can't do it unless you become ersatz, unless you make it into something fake, which is what Critical Role does,
Right.
Alex gave me the Iggy behind the scenes here. He's got a Jet 2. So Pundit, any final questions or thoughts for Alex before he has to take off tonight?
Well, I guess it's time to wrap up. In the first place, thank you for getting on our show here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I tried a couple of times before, but we never managed to put it together, and now I'm glad you're here. I hope that at some point you'll come again, maybe the next time you're doing a Kickstarter or something like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Sundays are usually just rough for me because it's kind of a family time, but I begged and pleaded my way into this one.
Well, we appreciate it.
Congratulations on the success of your second edition Kickstarter. If there's anyone who has any final questions here, I'm paging my way down trying to catch up with the chat here, especially looking for things specifically for Alex to answer. But
yeah, I think we've got all of the bases covered for Alex. So
didn't we just have another super chat here? Did you read Raven's super chat?
I didn't get that. I was going to get that after Alex bowed out. But it is for Alex.
It's for him though.
Alex, I think this is for you, the question, and there's some kudos for you too. Do you see a fracturing or decentralization of tabletop role-playing game hobby after the next edition of D&D falls on its face next year?
Yeah, I absolutely do. But with that fracturing will come a shrinking of the market size, because there's a network effect where people play because their friends play. And as the network fragments, it gets weaker, and then there'll be fewer groups. And we've been through this before. And, to me, it does feel like not dissimilar to where we were when Dungeons and Dragons, when TSR was going bankrupt and Magic the Gathering was emerging, and then Wizards swooped in. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 5 years Wizards has a different owner, or at least Dungeons and Dragons has a different owner. and then we'll go from there. But for the time being, I'm taking advantage of the fracturing to promote the sort of games I like and try and build the community that supports them. So,
well, we appreciate everything that you do, and clearly the TTRPG universe does too, because of the amazing response that you got for ACKS II. So
except for the ones that won't mention my name.
Well, they don't count. The Sparkle Troll's gonna Sparkle Troll, right? So
I agree with your analysis there, Alex. And the thing is, though, like I think you were implying, that sort of crisis, if you're an indie designer, is also a moment of opportunity, right? Because though you're right that the overall hobby will shrink, because there's a lot of people that are, they're in it because it's a fad, right? Like they're in it because it's popular right now, and when it stops being popular, they'll stop doing it. So the overall size of the hobby will shrink, but a lot of what will go away are some of the people that you don't really that aren't really that great a contribution to the hobby, anyways. And indie creators and small press companies are going to potentially have a group of people that are looking for something else to play, and that will lead to growth for some of the smaller actors.
The chat just keeps roping you back in, Alex.
Thank you so much, Chris.
ACKS II looks amazing. Haven't play tested, but I get the impression it's very close to the way D&D was intended to be played. Can't wait to get it. So Chris Miller, a lot of us, eagerly anticipating ACKS II. Thank you again for coming in. We are going to let him go so that the next time we want him to join us on Inappropriate Characters, there won't be such a beg from the powers that be. We all know how that is. Happy wife, happy life, man.
That's right.
Thanks, Alex.
She's a high level character, man.
Yeah, and she will TPK. We all have that, so I feel
all right,
you,
brother.
man.
Thanks so much for having me on.
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.
All right.
Well,
so I guess
we could clean up the chat, and I think we might turn in too, because we've covered a lot of it. Unless you have something in your back pocket that my Swiss cheese brain may have forgotten.
No, not especially. Just to comment to everybody watching that whether you're watching it live or post recording or whatever, to subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and feel free to share this video anywhere you think people will find it interesting or will get pissed off about it. And nominally, if I'm not mistaken, our next episode should be on the 14th of January. So mark your calendars for that. I don't know if we'll have another guest star, if it'll be just the three of us, but we'll see about that. And keep your eyes open for it. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you won't miss. I always try to post on social media about when we're doing this show, but we want to make sure that you don't miss it. So take
don't
the
forget,
appropriate precautions.
On the socials, make sure that you follow the RPG Pundit, Vendor Satanis, and myself, because on our independent socials, we let you know when everything comes out as well. Plus, you get all sorts of wonderful insight, because once a month is just not enough. Chat, you were spectacular this evening. This is officially the Christmas Inappropriate Characters episode, I suppose. So Merry Christmas for those of you.
Merry Christmas and an early Happy New Year to everyone.
Absolutely.
We'll see you in 2024, I mean.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. We'll see you in 2024, and who knows? Who knows what Wizards will pull out of their back pocket for the first quarter. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Take it easy. See ya in 4 weeks.